the most badass holy man in the empire, with the authority to text the Pope on WhatsApp, commander of the exorcism squads, the bishop. How did he lose a tooth over a milk bottle? Because an infant in diapers who can't even hold his head up literally smacked him right in the face with a shiny nursing bottle. He hit the bishop so hard his face was covered in blood. 5 minutes later, the baby's eyes turned bright red and he fired all his gunpowder at once. And the pillar of white light erupting from that tiny body struck the bone bag known as a lich so hard, it disintegrated the creature into atoms on the spot. People are stunned, of course. Even a baby in the cradle has taken down a wolf alone. People think it's a miracle, that a holy power is awakening in the newborn saint, or something. The craziest part is, this brat should have been dead the second he was born, even before opening his eyes, because those two nannies standing over him 5 minutes ago weren't nannies at all. They were straight-up assassins looking like branches of the Grim Reaper. The milk they shoved down the kid's throat is basically holy poison, a special brew designed to dissolve divine power and quietly take out saint candidates without anyone noticing. While the women waited for the baby to have a seizure and drop dead, ours chugged the whole bottle and topped it off with a burp. Then again and again, until he downed exactly 15 bottles of milk. The guy's not just dying, he's living it up like he's at an open buffet. Annoyed? That's an understatement. The kid raises his finger with a smirk, ordering something stronger because this poison won't even touch him. The guy is literally draining the venom, turning every drop into pure mana, actual fuel for his body, instead of letting it kill its target. These idiots filled up the guy's tank with their own hands. The reason a newborn baby drinks lethal poison like it's sweet syrup is simple: the soul inside isn't human. Shock whoever is in front of you. Well, the other immortal skeleton king. The most troublesome demon in history. He's a total psychopath who waged war against the gods alone. He started his career at rock bottom, a rankless, unskilled, poor scrap of skeletons summoned to the battlefield. I'm not exaggerating, I'm serious. The guy didn't have an ounce of flesh on him. With a sword in hand, he was thrown into an endless war that nobody cared about. Every demon stronger than him tried to slap him around, but our guy got ambitious. He evolved from an expendable pawn into such a lich that those above started to get cold feet. He leveled up with pure game logic. But everything changed when the gods who summoned him broke their word and didn't turn him back into a human. Instead of begging, he declared war on heaven. Panic-stricken, they used a sacred relic to seal his soul. What do you think ours did? He gathered all his energy. And right in the middle of the temple, he blew himself up like a suicide bomber. A classic case of, if I go down, everyone goes down. Her final words to the gods were, dream on. Bastards. The explosion wiped part of the divine realm off the map. The gods were too stunned to act. The sealing plan fell through. And his soul slipped away into a newborn body. But this drive for survival, this stubborn streak, didn't just appear out of nowhere. Before doing any tower defense or anything, Kimmy was just a man, an exhausted, worn-out human being. He was someone who worked like a machine his whole life but gained nothing, used to struggling just like me, the one writing this summary right now. But one day two things happened. He hit the jackpot, and that same day a doctor told him he only had a few days left to live. The disease was so rare that they were going to name it after him. Just like that useless, swelling mass growing in your body, your luck has also gone to waste. Standing in the rain with a winning lotto ticket, he cursed the universe. The universe just scoffed and turned him into a skeleton in the demon war. Now all that rage, experience, and power resides within a baby. The funny thing is, he ended up with the only family in the world that trains every day to kill him. The Asa family, a holy lineage, and this child is their heir, yet nights fill the manor from dawn till dusk. They're practicing by ripping through Skeleton King models. He has no idea that if he slips up and reveals his true identity, his family will grill him alive right then and there. Because right now the bishop is disgraced and covered in blood. Emperor Alexander admired the boy's platinum blonde hair, as it resembled that of the legendary founder. The baby is glowing like a saint. That's exactly what the bishop wants the least. Because he's a pawn of the Beret family. This family, who's monopolized the papacy for generations, has already picked their candidate. The others must be eliminated. Isaac was supposed to be easy, but the bishop went overboard and used the nuclear option. She caused a huge scene, claiming she sensed demonic energy from the boy. He asked for an exorcist right away. Not that he's wrong, really. Isaac lost his grip on the meaning he couldn't grasp, and the bishop caught it like radar. The Emperor closed the case. He said he wouldn't question a baby from the Alliance, but Isaac made a move no one expected. She reached out with that tiny hand. He plunged into the bishop's chest and ripped something out for everyone to see. A bandaged demon hand wearing a golden tespi. A sealed piece of a high-level demon corpse the bishop secretly used for the totem to absorb dark energy. Turns out the Empire's holy man was carrying a piece of the demon in his bosom all along. The bishop turned pale and broke into a cold sweat. Before I could even wonder how the baby knew my totem, Isaac snapped those tiny fingers of his. Pitch-black energy erupted from the totem. The sealed demon roared back to life, and a giant shadow lich appeared in the center of the holy temple. Guards scattered everywhere, priests screamed out. Emperor Alexander turned to the bishop with murder in his eyes, while the bishop shrieked that he had fathered a child. No one gave a damn about him. A guard grabbed Isaac and bolted. But the lich baby locked on and tore through the defensive line like paper. His goal wasn't to attack, it was to save. Because it recognized the Lich Lord, and the knights were sent flying everywhere. The Lich is yelling about freeing the imprisoned king, and there's a demon chasing the guard with the baby like a heat-seeking missile. Only dust remained of the mana Isaac used to activate the totem, but he had no intention of giving up. His red eyes flashed, and he poured everything he had into a single shot, taking a huge gamble. The blinding white milk gushed from that tiny body and hit the lich with such violence that the poor creature disintegrated into atoms and evaporated on the spot. As the shadow creature vanished with a screech, as if divine bleach had been poured over it, the crowd froze in shock because a newborn baby had just one-shot a dark lich. As whispers rippled through the crowd that this boy was a true saint, Isaac stared at his own hands in horror because that power definitely wasn't dark energy. His damn body had turned its essence into pure holy power, and he was in deep trouble because of that unexplainable white core. When he realized its meaning was completely gone, a terrifying flash struck his mind. This body was literally a factory converting his dark energy into holy power. While Isaac was internally spiraling, the cornered bishop lashed out in desperation, pointing his tiny finger at our little guy as the culprit. The man, shouting that the baby was an infidel, was literally groveling before the emperor, begging for a chance to prove his claim. Though he claimed the exorcism would reveal the truth, Emperor Alexander intervened with an icy demeanor, questioning the bishop's audacity to accuse the saint candidate. With a gaze sharp as a knife, the ruler stated clearly that even coming from a sacred office, such insolence would not go unpunished. Trapped, the bishop gritted his teeth. If the emperor got any more suspicious, the intruder's true identity would be revealed. A cruel glint appeared in the eyes of the man who risked even death to save his family. And at least he decided to take the Eshva family's saint candidate with him. As a massive golden wolf spirit lunged at the emperor and the babe with a roar, Alexander muttered that the traitor had finally shown his true colors. Isaac laughed inwardly at the man who thought this attack could kill him and prepared to counter, but there was one thing he hadn't accounted for. As the reality of his purpose fading struck him like a slap, a sudden wave of ice-blue energy ripped through the air to his rescue. As the werewolf writhed in pain, crushed in seconds by that mysterious power, a bone-chilling voice echoed from the shadows. The emperor couldn't hide his shock as a noble figure in blue robes emerged from the mist, asking who dared raise a hand against a descendant of Eshwa. The one who arrived was none other than Reli Eshwa, the seventh son of the Eshwa family, overwhelming his surroundings with his aura and shining silver stones. Without hesitation, he ordered the bishop's immediate execution, while a soldier pulled Isaac from the traitor's hands. While struggling against baby Eshwa's filthy hands, he froze at the sudden familiarity of the name. As Reli picked up the child and told him to behave, the Eshwa knights knelt in unison to greet their young master. Reli softened up, apologized for being late, and tried to lighten the mood with a smile, saying they'd brought him a small gift. The toy the knight held out with great joy was a model of the decapitated skeleton king, and Isaac was nearly speechless at the sight. Then, while other versions were shown where the skeleton king was burned alive and crushed by the saint, the knight commented on how cute they were. The knight, moved by what he mistook for tears of joy in the baby's terror-filled eyes, grew emotional. Meanwhile, Isaac wondered how he would survive this madness. While helpless in the adult's arms, Isaac screamed internally, wondering how he would survive in the hands of this entire outcast family. At that moment, his memory returned, and he remembered all the troublemakers, from Saint Noah Shua of the 45th generation to Okeza Shua of the 61st. Faced with the fact that all his sworn enemies share his surname, he cursed the karma that led him to be reincarnated into Aziz's family. While Isaac cursed his luck, the cornered bishop screamed at them, calling them heretics and asking where they found that creature. As he pointed at Isaac, shouting that he'd expose him and ruin the Asher family, Reli's sword was already out of its sheath. With a cold, decisive strike that silenced the bishop forever, Reli looked at the corpse and muttered that he should be grateful he didn't take his head off. Isaac, who admired the courage of the man who killed just because he was insulted, had his ears quickly covered by a knight. The knight, who said the young master should only hear beautiful things, hummed a gore-filled lullaby to calm the child, while Isaac looked at his toy and diagnosed them as insane. The power of the Mavai Ejwa family was indisputable, and just then Emperor Alexander approached to take control of the situation. The emperor stated he owed the child a life debt, then looked into Reli's eyes and asked him to deliver a message to the family head. When Reli heard the imperial palace wanted to raise this child, she thought it was a joke, but the ruler was quite serious. While Isaac liked the idea of being hired by the palace, Alexander announced that the Holy Kingdom would target the child. The emperor's face fell as he mentioned the Pope would oppose him just for his hair color, and worse, that the Skeleton King was after the child. As Isaac questioned why he'd be hunting the Skeleton King if he were the king himself, an official stepped in to smooth things over. Agreeing with the official that the child should be raised by his family because he carries Ashwa blood, Reli stated they would handle everyone, whether it's the Pope or the Skeleton King. The emperor, relying on the power of the Ashwa family, replied with a dirty smirk, saying Saint Melissa would be glad to meet the Skeleton King again, making Isaac freeze up. Hearing the name of the craziest and most troublesome enemy he'd ever faced nearly gave Isaac a brain hemorrhage, and that ironic truth destroyed him. Facing the fact that Melissa was his direct descendant, Isaac couldn't believe he came from the lineage of these weapons created by the gods to destroy him. When you kill one, a stronger one takes its place. Now the worst of these plagues was his ancestor, and Reli was grinning, unaware of the situation. Unaware that the child in her arms was the very enemy they swore to destroy, Reli praised her family's power while Emperor Alexander watched them silently. The young knight intervened and brought up the past, speaking of the martyred saints. Our little Isaac was screaming his lungs out. He was struggling, crying out, "I'm innocent, I didn't kill anybody." While efforts to debunk the baseless rumors continued, Master Riley thought everything was just fine. But our baby king was hurting inside, not feeling good at all, and was basically about to lose his mind. Riley lifted the child up and gave thanks for his birth, but she had only one wish. "Look, don't end up like that terrifying Skeleton King, show some character." Little does he know, the one in his arms is that very trouble himself. This blessing felt like a knife stabbing into the little one's side. Visualizing those old, wild, and cruel ways, his conscience ached, and he secretly apologized for the messes he had made. Emperor Alexander upped the stakes. The brat was meant to be used as leverage against the demons. Besides, that household doesn't even have Azais anymore. So their hands are tied. He dealt the final blow. The kid's mother vanished into thin air a year ago. Isaac was devastated when he heard the news, frozen in total shock. The little one was stunned to learn his mother was a saint, while Riley shot right onto the defensive. He claimed the lady isn't dead and that Melissa will return soon. Isaac held his breath. Is that woman alive? When he found out his worst enemy was alive, he panicked and practically wet himself with fear. He knew best just how dangerous a psychopath Melissa was. To survive, she made a strategic move with her tiny hand and desperately clung to the Emperor's finger. She gave me an Oscar-worthy performance, winking cutely to say, "Take me with you." The great Emperor fell for it instantly, and just gave in right away. Velade was dying to go to the palace, but Riley tried to play it off by claiming the kid just clings to everyone. He reminded them that the Ezio family was the factory of saints. The Emperor hit the nail on the head, saying you're still rookies with zero experience in raising a saintess. The argument has officially turned into a neighborhood brawl, like a tug-of-war over a child. Everyone held their breath, fearing the poor little master would be torn right in two. Isaac was frantically scrambling to reach the palace, praying for his life. Then he felt that warm, life-giving energy radiating from the Emperor. This was the ticket to survival. The Emperor smirked, approving the boy's clever choice. But suddenly, a chill ran through Isaac. Elsewhere, a failed bishop knelt, trying to save his head by claiming he was innocent and that the thing used mana. While people whispered it was a demon's work, a cold voice cut in. He snapped back that claiming gods give demons holy power is pure blasphemy, insisting it's just mana. As the mysterious leader's sword flashed in the air, the place turned into a bloodbath. The cardinal, as if nothing had happened, cleaned his sword and went back to business. No need for a new team, the Emperor's taking the boy, destination, the Imperial Palace. Isaac, in his crib, sensed this plan and began to tremble. Things were going south. Realizing he wouldn't survive in the palace, the little guy remembered the deal from a few days ago. Riley had played her biggest card against the Emperor. It turns out the most valuable thing they have is the Skeleton King's corpse. Isaac was shocked to hear they had his body. Riley reached out as if to say, "Come here." Isaac firmly pointed his finger at Riley, baby talking. Goo goo ga. As he changed the route to Ezua, the plans had changed. Even that man of iron was softened at this gesture. Resigned to his fate in the car, Isaac thought he'd given up on the palace, but still had to get his old body back. He needed a body strong enough to defy the gods. To the knight asking why the Holy See was after them, Riley whispered the truth. According to the prophecy, the saint would be adopted as the child of a god. Isaac was speechless when he heard this, stunned by how it could be relevant. If Aziz became the king of priests, the pope, things would change. He was strong enough to rival the emperor. That's why the peace that held the papacy together was under threat. Then things got messy all of a sudden. The car stopped suddenly. Another glitch had come up. Guards held the city gate, refusing them entry into the duchy. Their path was blocked. The guard grinned wickedly at Riley, who roared, "Don't you recognize the Ashiva crest?" Darkness suddenly filled the place and demons started popping up like farts. Isaac was stunned to see the demons. But he had forbidden attacks on human territories. A demon general bellowed that the king had ordered the death of all saints. Supposedly, it's an order from the great skeleton king Isaac. While ours was snapping. When the hell did I ever say that? A blue lightning demon turned him to ash. East. While the demon general roared, "Lowly holy knight," Riley narrowed his eyes like knives. He was furious that they dared to talk nonsense in front of Yeshua, an expert in exorcism. As sacred light gathered in his sword, he vowed to destroy all evil. He dissed the skeleton king for being a coward and sending his subordinates to their deaths. The herd, defensive of their lords, launched an attack shouting, "For the resurrection!" The knight shielded Isaac, holding him close as they were blown back by the blast. The knight apologized, plunged into the forest, and left Isaac inside a shimmering magic circle. When Isaac touched the barrier, he realized it was high-level work. It was built on the logic of no one coming or going. He closed his eyes, focused on breaking the spell, and summoned the observer whisper. The red-eyed shadow entity appeared at once and fawned, saying, "My supreme army!" Isaac was like, "Shut up, don't nag me, it's been a long time since we last saw each other." He didn't think they'd meet again. He told the being who congratulated him on taking the baby's body to stop slacking and scan for enemies. There were 88 demons, but the number was falling fast. At 51:31, Riley and his knights were clearing the area. Suddenly, a wave of purple energy vaporized the remaining demons. No enemies remained, but a massive shadow lich appeared and began to roar. Isaac panicked as he saw the creature screaming that anyone who touched his king would pay with their life. "What's his deal?" "The king," he muttered, baffled. Lich's loyalty short-circuited a bit, thinking his master was trapped inside a helpless child. She was snapping at people, telling them not to look at him with their filthy eyes. Thinking, "Damn, I'm busted." Isaac tried to order Leash to stop and baby talk while Riley gave the war command. "While I was going, goo gga," so he wouldn't touch my food. The knight sensed the baby's aura, misunderstood, and tried to calm me down, saying, "Be patient, young master." They acted like they had it under control. Lich, overjoyed at being noticed, gushed, "I'm coming, sir." He swept past the knights like a storm. Rayleigh froze, realizing the worm-like creature's target was Isaac himself. While the Lich cursed the holy knights for imprisoning his master, King Isaac was secretly enjoying the attention, chuckling to himself. I couldn't just stand by and let my mana go to waste, of course. The little guy immediately started barking orders. That bag of bones lich snapped to attention immediately, like a loyal servant. Yes, chief, he said, swinging his shadow scythe and shattering that cool magical barrier to pieces. They're like a total wrecking crew. The knights began to shriek as if the world were ending when their young lord's shield shattered. Kim Yusak was quite calm, patting his employee on the back. Well done, champ, he muttered. Now be good and don't cause any trouble. Poor Lich froze in place, experiencing the shock of his life. Lord Yusak released his power, and that giant demon shriveled up like a crushed tin can. Why? He wailed bitterly, as the poor soul crumbled into dust. Rally's spouse was speechless. Did this kid just turn a massive demon into a keychain? His eyes locked onto the baby next to that petrified demon hand. When one knight roared about taking out the demon in one shot, the entire Blue Knight squad cheered like a group of cheerleaders. Isaac, however, was laughing at their naivety. That was no holy magic. He thought he'd just cast a spell and they shouldn't overreact, but Rally was still suspicious. The knight commander hugged the boy and started preaching about how true character shows in times of crisis. They said if even the devil fled in fear from the young master, this kid must be a saint. And Rally reluctantly accepted it. Saint or not, this kid isn't normal, my friend. He clenched his teeth, trying to process the situation, but why did he have to be a man? That damn curse of the Skeleton King kept coming back to his mind. Fist clenched at the end of the rally, he made his decision. The commander got fired up and swore an oath to protect young Master Isaac as the head of the Blue Knights. Rally realized that the future of the spouse and family lies with this child. He finally realized how foolish he'd been, fearing that ridiculous curse. With a beaming face, Pusa lifted Isaac into the air, saying a child would lead our family to greatness. Let's go home, champ. While his uncle promised to make him a legendary holy knight, Isaac was thinking, just give me my body back, you maniacs. Isaac froze when Rally excitedly said the first thing she'd do at home was teach him how to curse at the Skeleton King. Screw this family business, he thought to himself. When the carriage entered the Duchy of Ashva's manor, the wealth was dazzling. Even Isaac, a former king, couldn't help but look at those statues and gardens and say, wow. He snapped when he remembered his own poor past and the days he went hungry to feed his men. That shadow creature Whisper was staring at the luxury with its mouth watering. Isaac snapped at the creature to shut up. Rally entered the continent's exorcism center, that massive mansion, with the baby in her arms. He pointed to the practice field and said, look at them. The knights were lancing the Skeleton King model like madmen, venting their hatred. While Rally took pride in this view, Isaac was horrified. While Whisper was mocking them, calling them cultists, Isaac ordered him to scout the area. The shadow entity crumbled to dust, but upon its return, it was speechless with shock. The whole house was decorated with thousands of mana cores, literally bursting with energy. When the car stopped, the steward blocked the way. Young Master Isaac is to be taken to the annex. He's forbidden from entering the main building, Master Golan's strict orders. Rally held the boy close. So you're sending them to those haunted ruins? But Whisper jumped right in. The real treasure is in the outhouse, boss. Isaac was screaming inside that he had to go there, but Rally growled and roared. Get out of my way! He doesn't even know the kid wants that place. He said he wouldn't let that godforsaken place swallow his nephew. When Isaac said he'd read Rally heroic tales of the saints, she thought, are you trying to bore me to death? While Ellen was telling stories of slaying the Skeleton King, the fifth son Goel leaned over the balcony and shouted, you brought a filthy bug and you're making a scene! It's been a long time, with that same insulting smirk. He loomed over me saying, oh, so now you're starting to defy your older brother? Isaac thought to himself, what a lowlife this guy was. When Goel ordered him to put that thing down and send it to the outbuilding, the atmosphere turned cold. Rally's power awakened. He carries this family's blood. Sending him there means sending him into exile. Goel was mocking, saying you brought a scrap of bone even filthier than the Skeleton King. And you have the nerve to talk about lineage. Goel pinched Isaac's cheek so hard that Isaac questioned if this guy was a priest or a mobster. Rally pulled the boy back immediately. You're just trying to kick him out of the succession race. Kick me out? Isaac gritted his teeth. That would be bad. Because I need to drain this mansion. Goel chuckled. He's already cursed. Demons are drawn to him like magnets. The knight jumped, They are coming because he possesses the holy power of a saint, sir. How touching, Goel mocked. Then let Aziz prove it. He pointed to the withered, gray tree in the distance. Save our family symbol. That divine tree died from the demon infection. If he has the talent, let him rise again. Raleigh shouted. Have you lost your mind? That tree's been dead for 70 years, man. Isaac thinks to himself. Poor Melissa! Your lineage has withered away, and look what has become of your grandchildren. He lamented. Isaac flinched amidst the shouting, but sensed that foul demonic residue within the tree's roots. Don't you see this? He roared to Whisper in his mind. Go get it. Whisper through the tree correctly. Raleigh, she's still a baby, what do you expect? As he spoke, he noticed the dry branches blooming and fell silent. A blinding light exploded, and the divine tree roared back to life. It's officially revived. Raleigh held his breath. As for Goel, he was speechless. It hadn't worked. Isaac grinned. It's no big deal, dear. I just vacuumed clinical residue at the bottom. He thought to himself. Whisper burped contentedly. A knight asked in shock. Young Master Raleigh, what did you just do? They asked. I didn't even touch it, said Raleigh. Raleigh stared at the baby in her arms. Isaac, on the other hand, was sighing. He was whining that a perfect scene went to waste and was totally ruined. Incredible. Young Master Isaac made it. The knights were celebrating. Goel pulled himself together and snapped. Don't be ridiculous, Raleigh. You're definitely using the saint's power to polish that trash. What? Raleigh lost his temper. Isaac, this family's gone off the rails. She thought. Isaac entered analysis mode. It has nothing to do with Melissa, but Raleigh is literally the male version of her. Are they stepchildren? Wait, Goel looks a lot like a papaya, man. You think I don't know? You brought her here to pass her off as a saint candidate, but she's nothing more than a half-breed brat brought by some fugitive. While a gossiping snake was whispering poison into Raleigh's ear, he got his answer not with words, but with a punch like a sledgehammer to the face. While little Isaac enjoyed the chaos and snickered from the sidelines, the air inside was as toxic as gas. While the kid perched on the desk was bored to death, temporary boss Hannah tried to pierce Raleigh with her stare. With his jaw shattered, Goel hid behind his mother's skirt, questioning authority while whining and asking where the head of the house was. When Raleigh interrupted with a frosty attitude, Hannah pointed to the door. But just then, the old servant burst in, out of breath. When the old brat announced that Isaac revived the holy tree, Goel talked nonsense, claiming it was the power of prayer. Answering the witch Hannah's demand for proof, Isaac raised his small hand and unleashed a power wave that leveled everything. While the elders trembled thinking this energy was holy, our guy was cursing them all internally, glad to have fooled them with his demon power. When that brat, marketing his demonic aura like some holy light, pulled off a job failed for 70 years, Raleigh bragged about it with pride. While Goel slammed the table and shouted they'd be disgraced, Isaac, whom he called beggar's seed, was busy picking his ear out of boredom. Raleigh put his hand on his heart and floored the gas. He raised the bar to the heavens, saying this boy could become a saint, or even the Pope. When he claimed he'd killed the skeleton king, Isaac almost peed himself, but Hannah's eyes lit up. While Raleigh was digging his own grave, Hannah took the chance and demanded the brat be tested. As entry to that cursed cellar in the dark forest was requested, his hand sheathed his sword, and a knight rushed to deliver the news. The father was shocked when the deputy chief asked to open the cellar to unmask the fake saint at home. While Ellie refused, saying that place would chew him up and spit him out, a powerful voice from nowhere took over. Lady Melis sized up the little one who saved the tree, initiating a dangerous game. The woman who had the cellar doors flung wide open dreamt of rattling the skeleton king's bones with that ancient scrap. Those who heard that the winner would take all the loot and be personally trained began to salivate. Finding his old body in this ancient storehouse of potential graves, Isaac was mocked by his sidekick, Whisper. Excited by the idea of getting his old body back, our guy started making sneaky plans as soon as he heard the vault was open to everyone. While the knight pumped up the boy, Isaac planned to use the chaos of the crowd as the perfect cover. Riley came in with a long face and warned that prisoner of war demons were roaming around inside. Isaac, who thought he'd eat level 6 demons for snacks, gulped when he heard about the existence of a level 8 monster. And once he learned he was a level 9 dragon, he was convinced this family belonged in a madhouse. Whisper tried to offer comfort by bringing up dragon lore, but Isaac began to tremble, remembering what a nuisance these scaly creatures could be. Even if he once tricked 70 dragons, the mere chance of being recognized had him shaking in his boots. Knowing he couldn't beat those monsters, he changed course and decided to snatch the mana cores from the warehouse next door. Reaching the warehouse's gloomy door, the duo slipped inside and silently began the operation. Reading the cover of the ancient book in his hand, Isaac froze at the sight of the title. Seeing that book, his own death warrant, he inwardly rebelled against why he wasn't taught the holy powers. He thought about using mind control, but his sidekick killed the vibe by saying it would destroy the family. While he sighed, thinking the theory wouldn't work, Riley suddenly appeared and hugged him, saying she was tired. While his uncle took the boy away, the knight in the back picked that damn book up off the ground. The flood of holy energy released by Riley's simple touch was actually an attack technique. While the brat in the cradle learned his lesson and rejoiced, he was already figuring out how to run away and mind his business. Once Isaac locked onto his target and put on his act, Riley naively murmured about how wonderful the boy was. The duo, thinking they fooled everyone, was shocked when Riley gave that dangerous totem to the knight. Losing his masterpiece and source of meaning crushed Isaac, but he quickly recovered and hatched a new plan. While the little one, eyeing the mana cores, tried to escape the crib, Whisper was mocking his speed. The moment he ordered the door open, it slammed in his face, making the little guy lose his balance and tumble through the bars. Unable to open the holy magic sealed door, Isaac began to punch it in a desperate, furious rage. He used brute force, knowing he'd get caught if he used magic. But in vain. Just then, the door opened on its own. When the door opened, Isaac, flattened on the floor, found a bandaged brat looking down at him like he was a bug. While Isaac wondered if his opponent was drowning and Whisper fumed at the insult, Shuri threateningly clenched her bandaged fist. It was impossible for this brat to create a totem. While even a genius like himself couldn't do it, his mind drifted to the moments of Gao Xuan's test. While Shuri shouted that she'd shine like a bulb to become a saint, and won't let her place be stolen, Isaac clung to her leg like a leech. A rolling milk bottle ruined Shuri's charisma. Isaac, laughing at the bewildered boy sprawled on the ground, had found his mount. As Shuri shouted, asking if he knew who she was, it clicked for Isaac. This guy was actually her cousin. That scumbag was gearing up to attack a baby, but Isaac took him down with a thrown milk bottle. While whispering cheers for that beautiful shot, Isaac ordered this arrogant brat to be his free taxi. The humiliated Shuri held her head, unleashed a power surge, and opened a sacred shield to stop the incoming bottle. While Isaac watched with amusement, Shuri bragged about being the only one his age who could use level 3 magic. With a devious smirk, Shuri opened a giant magic circle beneath her feet and tried to show off by firing 2 blinding beams. Isaac welcomed the attack as if it were a delicious meal. The lights hit the energy wall and vanished into nothingness. Her strongest attack absorbed like a sponge, Shuri froze in her tracks. Isaac was smirking as she screamed, not understanding what this massive spell was. Isaac was in high spirits as he thanked everyone for the show. When Shuri ran out of energy, she started to cry, and a whisper rose from the shadows. The servant asked if they should kill, but since Isaac was unharmed, he didn't see the need. Shuri blinked her eyes in surprise. He came up with a ridiculous defense, saying, "If you can't hit him, at least don't scare him." He froze at the terrible sound while trying to look cool. He started breaking into a cold sweat before a giant shadowy being. Roaring as its king was attacked, the beast grabbed Shuri by the leg as she tried to flee, pinning her down in mortal terror. Isaac stroked the beast's hand and climbed onto Shuri's shoulder. He was laughing with the victim, who had no idea what was happening. Under Isaac, who ordered her to carry him, Shuri tried to resist, crying and repeating his name to herself. The boy's dreams of becoming a saint and taking the papal throne vanished when he became a mount for a demon-like baby. Trapped between Isaac, who wanted her to drive into a building, and the shadow, who threatened to crush her, Shuri obeyed. Praying just to stay alive, Shuri kept running through the garden under the moonlight following Isaac's erratic orders. Isaac was screaming death threats at this incompetent driver, who kept turning right every time he was told to turn left. Drenched in sweat, Shuri froze as she realized they had reached the second annex, known as the Haunted House. Isaac gave a devious smile, ignoring Shuri, who was panicking and remembering her master's warnings about why they were there. Sensing the scent of thousands of souls inside, Isaac realized the old building reeked of intense magic. Decades of resentment had built up. Isaac insisted they enter, but Shuri refused to go inside. When Shadow ordered him to be silent and walk, Shuri's footsteps and sniffling echoed through the dark corridor. In a place messier than expected, Isaac scanned for dark energy with his crimson eyes and found the sealed door. Whisper said the building was sealed, while Shuri begged for them to turn back. Pulling Shuri's hair as she gasped in fear, Isaac harshly reminded her of what to do next. Standing before portraits of former patriarchs, Isaac teased him, asking if he'd become one too. Remarking that he'd only see that position in his dreams, Isaac ruthlessly smashed a milk bottle against the portrait. As the magical barrier shattered, Shuri, weeping for her ancestors' portraits, was blown back by the explosion. Thinking there should have been no barriers around the paintings, Isaac confirmed that the barrier was broken. Thinking he'd won, Isaac dragged Shurin toward the portal before he could recover. Though Shuri shouted, asking if she was crazy and telling her not to break things, she couldn't stop herself from being dragged into the darkness. Isaac dove into the secret passage with excited shouts and discovered the room filled with magic energy. Isaac, screaming with joy, ordered Whisper to close the door to claim the room. Even as Shuri lunged to make him wait, Isaac smirked, implying brats like her wouldn't understand. With the door shut in his face, the now calm boy inside was ready to start the show with blue energy. Shuri froze at the cold voice as someone pounded the door outside, threatening to snitch. When the white-haired man lifted Shuri and asked why she was there, she was scared to death. While the old woman shouted about the entrance being barred, witnesses said Shuri was carrying the baby, so the child tried to defend it. With his suspicions confirmed, the white-haired man thought Shuri had crossed the line and was about to drink. When he squeezed the boy's shoulder and asked where he locked Isaac up, Shuri screamed in denial. The guy was about to mumble that Isaac locked the door when all hell broke loose inside. The guy panicked, clung to the door, and screamed the little one's name. He pressed his ear to the wood and asked if anyone was inside. In that dark room, the curtain had already risen, and Isaac's fake yet heartbreaking sobs were echoing. When the door opened, the old woman rushed in. She sighed, thinking the boy was trembling from fear. The man picked up the sobbing brat. The kid was in shock, but he acted like nothing was wrong. Adam felt relieved looking at the baby, but then turned to Sherry and scolded the child, saying he should be ashamed. Even though Sherry swore she was innocent, no one cared. While being carried, Isaac mouthed a sarcastic thank you to the frozen child. That innocent baby face disappeared in an instant. In its place was that famous evil smirk. He was grateful for slurping up the energy, of course. Poor Sherry, meanwhile, was writhing with a headache. While the adults worried why Sherry's blood pressure spiked, Isaac basked in their laps, counting his loot. He captured 100 years of meaning in a single stroke. Energy sparkled in his tiny palm. Now he could set his famous plan in motion. But the man still thought Velate's terrifying gaze was a sign of shock. Naive fool. As the sun beat down on that grand estate, Isaac sat quietly by his book. Then Riley's voice was heard. He said there's someone he wants to introduce. Eshuha came in with a woman in uniform. This is my partner, she's going to babysit the child. The lady was a holy knight of Eshuha. The woman knelt before the baby and made a solemn vow to serve little Master Isaac until her last breath. Isaac narrowed his eyes and wondered if this woman was an agent. Then, to get attention, he baby-talked and called out to the woman, saying, "Gu gu jie ga." Then he raised hell. He shouted that he didn't need a woman and ordered her to get out. A terrifying dark aura spread from Veledin. While Ashley was frozen with fear, Isaac was shooting Riley a death stare. Who poisoned this family's peace again to make them all lose their minds like this? And Riley was standing there with that annoying smirk on her face. "Here's my gift," she said, opening the box to reveal a cheap-looking ring that seemed like it came from a local street market. Isaac sneered inwardly. Has the great Asa family sunk so low as to give away cheap jewelry? Ashley gasped in surprise. He was questioning if this junk pile was the treasure of the Blessed Virgin. Riley patted the boy's head and nodded with pride. Isaac's eyes glowed red once it was confirmed to be a relic from the elders. So this pile of junk was actually the real deal. His memory suddenly came alive. It was the old face that the holy virgins once used to defeat it. That ancient power in his tiny palm began to throb and warm up, as if it were alive. Isaac grinned slyly. The battery was dead for now, but he'd surely find a way to charge it, when just then he felt a sinister presence on his neck. In the distance, Gol Shua stood with arms crossed, clenching his teeth so hard his jaw nearly shattered, pure hatred radiating from his eyes. Isaac stole a sidelong glance in that direction. That hitman face proved how serious things were. Riley turned cheerfully and called to her nephew, but Gol instantly wiped that psycho look off her face and put on a fake angelic mask. With bloodshot eyes and a blindingly creepy smile, she told the boy how sweet he was, then leaned into his ear, ready to pour out her venom. Isaac recoiled at Golian's madness. He could almost hear the silent screams inside the man's head. Gol was fuming. Even after all his sabotage on the blessing device, the treasure still ended up falling right into Isaac's lap. He remembered those pathetic moments when Anarkel knelt at the leader's feet, begging for her son. But the woman had dismissed her with an icy coldness. Sherry had already been blessed, so she was kicked out for being greedy. Gol, resentful that a brat had spoiled his plans, looked at Riley's gift with disgust. He insulted that piece of trash and turned to Isaac with a cunning smile. "How could you accept such a useless thing?" he said, opening his own box and pulling out a flashy ring. Riley was upset when he held out this bribe, claiming it had received countless blessings from the Holy See. Golian realized he was being undermined. Isaac reached out his hand. Gol was grinning as if he had won. Until a tiny hand slapped him right in the middle of his face. Isaac, thinking, "Get lost," refused, nauseated by the object carrying the Pope's foul stench. Isaac grabbed the box and just tossed that expensive gift away. Golian's scream echoed as the ring arched through the air and hit the bottom of the fountain. Riley was shocked that this fortune went to waste. But Isaac was quite pleased with his work, standing tall. When she held up that simple ring Riley gave her, Riley started crying tears of joy. While she cheered for her nephew who picked her, Gol's men were clumsily splashing around in the freezing water in the background, trying to find that precious ring. Isaac was chuckling to himself. He used magic to make the ring unnaturally heavy. He whispered to the shadow guard right there, ordering him to go and get that thing at midnight. He was planning to sell that junk for cash later. Back in her office, Gol was fuming. She slumped at her desk, overwhelmed by her own rage. While wailing over his lost fortune, he tried to comfort himself with a forced grin. After all, that brat could never have used the old man's ring properly anyway. According to a knight's report, it took the divine power of 20 people to run that thingamajig, and Gol was already making those sneaky, evil plans in his head. They said maybe 10 people would show up for that brat's first birthday, but the next day, Ashwa Manor descended into a chaos that rivaled any madhouse. Cars and crowds of people swarmed inside like vultures smelling carrion. Hardly believing her eyes, Ashley informed the young master that 148 saint candidates and 4,000 parasitic nobles were inside, and that even the emperor had joined this circus. But Isaac's face was drawn in a grumpy look, questioning whether the gods were just too lazy and indifferent to scatter saints on every corner. Riley was just as shocked. While they thought everyone would flee, seeing it as an obvious trap, their friend Count Simon Regis, head of the Merchant Guild, appeared with a grin and shamelessly explained that no one saw it that way. With a laugh, Simon blurted out that every family in the Empire was buzzing with gossip, and after hearing even those losers from the Asa family joined in, they were certain it couldn't be a trap. When Simon reminded them of the dubious prize put up by Lady Eshu, adding that no one could refuse such bait, Isaac perked up and listened like a curious predator. While Isaac inwardly questioned what the prize was, Riley suspected that her friend Simon harbored a contempt so deep it even sickened him against the snobbish Barrett family. Though Riley struggled to silence him, Simon loudly bellowed that his own son was also a candidate saint. Riley had to warn her to hold her jaw in a panic. As Simon kept blabbing while clinging to the doorknob, referencing old proverbs, a cold voice froze them in their tracks. Riley caught her breath in fear when she saw Cardinal Barrett standing there. With that chilling, devious smile, the Cardinal hinted the poor Escher family through this party just to save their honor, while his true perverse intent was to personally leering at their nominee. When the man's gaze locked onto the brat in Shuri's arms, he rejoiced as if he'd found a godsend, pressing his hand to his heart and putting on that nauseating mask of fake sincerity. As he pretended to pray for this blessed candidate of Asa to bring glory to the family, Shuri felt a pang of suspicion. It was an obvious trap because he noticed the number of candidates suddenly spiked to 148 last week. The Holy See had basically let every riffraff in. If a brawl broke out in the treasury vault, it was clear as day that this pack of thugs would tear the weak ones to pieces. The terrifying truth hit him like a slap in the face. Isaac was in danger because E's sons were usually just pretty faces and useless ornaments, making them easy targets for anyone looking to win favor with the church. It had already been whispered from the shadows. Play with Asa's descendants like a cat plays with a mouse. Mix some holy poison into his water and finish him off. The goal was to humiliate him in front of everyone, but our psycho Kim Yusak was happily gulping down the toxic water like it was sweet syrup. Thinking this poison was amazing, he downed the bottles right before the eyes of the stunned candidates. He was chanting inside that this little bit of poison wasn't enough to fill his tooth. When he hurled the empty bottle at Shuri Eshu's head, the conspirators panicked. Man, this kid should have had diarrhea and been miserable by now. They panicked, thinking they gave him the wrong bottle. While Shuri was dying of embarrassment, wondering why this kid was stubbornly poisoning himself, she kicked the bottle out of Kim Yusak's hand to save the situation. Trying to stop the boy acting like he was possessed, she pushed away the fresh bottle Kim Yusak offered, but she was unaware of the little brat's scheme. There was no poison in that bottle, but while the kid was clinging to Shuri's leg like a leech, braying for that poisonous water, a blonde kid panicked and blurted out that he was the one who actually had the poison. "Who is Yusak? Give him to me!" He roared and rose into the air, lightning bolting from his eyes. It had already entered detox mode because the dark energy within had reached its peak level. While the children whispered in shock, Shuri was surprised by what happened, and in the midst of this chaos, a white-haired man entered the stage. While Shuri shouted about what Kina Barrett was doing there, Kim Yusak smirked, thinking this man would win by calmly swallowing the fresh poison. The place started buzzing like a beehive. What was the Pope's entourage doing here? Despite Kinnan's white hair, people remembered the previous Pope's messy brown hair and felt anxious. Kina curled her lips and tossed a sly smile at Aziz's treasure with the corner of her mouth, as if saying hello. It was obvious the man was from the Pope's entourage. He radiated such golden divinity that even bishops would pale in his presence. While Kim was disgusted by this display and trying to understand why the man was the top candidate, Kina suddenly turned around and began manipulating the crowd. He stepped forward, asking what they'd gained from tormenting a small child, and tried to give a moral lesson, implying their status was worthless. Thinking that no child could manage toxin immunity, and that this family was genetically moronic, he knelt artistically before the person. She put on that fake, sickening angel of mercy smile, gathered her strength, and claimed she would heal the poor boy. While other candidates spoke of Kina's power, Kina watched the scene with an indifferent, mocking gaze, as if observing a circus monkey from the sidelines. While Kina enjoyed bathing the kid in light, feeling proud of how clever he was, someone suddenly blew a single breath in his face and ruined the mood. That grand, holy power evaporated in an instant. Kina roared in resentment that her prey was being protected, while he stood his ground with a bottle in hand, glaring back as if to say, "What are you looking at?" When Kina grabbed Shurin by the collar and lifted him off the ground, people's eyes nearly popped out of their heads. He was getting really nervous about whether he could protect her. "If it weren't for me, you would have smashed that bottle over your head," he joked, and let him go as if the man had done him a favor. "No problem, he's just a kid." He brushed it off, then turned away with that disgusting, condescending look. After mockingly waving to the children and wishing them luck, Asa declared that the greatest treasure would be his. The Skeleton King said the king's remains would never benefit the Asa family, while Shuri stood sullenly behind this neostip, looking around. Who was Shuri desperately hugging, and why was it like this? While Shuri collapsed mumbling a girl's name, Kim ground his teeth in rage. He went mad yelling, "What are you doing with my body?" Later, as other candidates discussed the chaos, Kim was in a corner, plotting his next move. As someone who meditated for centuries, he knew regaining level 10 was child's play, but with all these brats around, he wondered how he'd slip away. His red eyes gleamed with determination, and just as he said, "I will destroy everything in my path," an old man gathered everyone around him. When Kim heard they'd be listening to history class, he got bored and tried to sneak away, but Shuri caught him immediately. "Where do you think you're going?" A loud blast shouted, startling Shuri, who stuttered and pointed her finger in panic. While the old man shouted, "Isaac!" Kim had already leapt like a firework, turning to dust in the excitement of testing his new holy art. Terrified, the old man was screaming and tearing his hair out, yelling that it was a forbidden zone and traps would go off if he went there. While the old man roared to stop that brat and ran in vain, children scattered in chaos, but someone had no intention of stopping. Meanwhile, in the ballroom of the Isham residence, a woman worried for the young master while the silver-haired man beside her watched the wall with a freezing cold expression. As a magic orb suddenly glowed, the host announced they were linked to the treasure vault. When he said he'd explain using the summoned monster chasing the third boy, the silver-haired man's ears perked up. The doors creaked open like a theater stage. The bronze medal is currently with Amanesh's father, who is celebrating by boasting of his son's success in the stands. The silver medal goes to Shurai Shwaya. His father blinks, beaming with pride like a puffed-up turkey blessing his son. The announcer stares cross-eyed at the screen, brain circuits fried. And who is the gold medalist? The man at the top is Isaac. He storms in like a whirlwind while the silver-haired man and the woman beside him are frozen in fear. Drunk with victory? The elders are desperate to stop him, but it's too late. The kid already triggered the trap. As Shuri screams, a wave of energy fries the old man. The place instantly turns into a horror movie filled with children's screams. Shuri roars at that lunatic stirrer, fuming at him for ruining everything and questioning the kid's sanity. The exam is already hell, and now they're dealing with traps. Ignoring the buzz, Kim calculations the start of the second part. Another trap layer is triggered. The shadow creature whispers, trying to curry favor by saying it worked thanks to the mana core its master absorbed. With the thrill of leveling up, he thought of exploiting his forbidden slave even more and sent him forward to catch the prey. Some brat in the crowd didn't expect it to be this bloody, cursing the Santi family's power and whining. While her friend stares blankly, Shuri is suddenly lifted into the air, defying gravity. Wait, is this lady actually flying? One's asking his name, the other's claiming he cheated. Shuri is busy cursing them out in her head. That's not the point, you fools. The boy in the shadow's grip is shouting that he flew against his will, trying to save the situation. While shouting to be let down, the entity threw the informant it caught at his feet like a sack, completing its mission. Groaning on the floor, Shuri tries to explain that this maniac must stop, or they'll both end up dead in the second room. You're making too much noise. Yasak orders him to stop rambling, quit interrupting, and just describe the room. Shuri bursts in out of breath, blabbing that they must never attack, and that this nonsense is their only way to survive. They just have to wait like statues for 3 minutes. Someone impatient died before. What a stale test of patience. Yasak digests this info, crawls on the floor like a baby, and plays the obedient role. Sounds like child's play. Don't attack, wait, it's over, she mumbles confidently and reaches her tiny hand toward the door. The welcome to the silence room sign glows. Those classic warnings about patience being a virtue pop up. He listens to that divine, boring proclamation promising that forbidden patience leads to light. While others dive in like suckers, Kina Beret and his gang wait in ambush behind, as a child trembling with fear questions their fate. Kina, with a devious smirk, stays in the back, arguing it's smarter to let the suckers up front go ahead like lambs to the slaughter. Aware that those who rush would get crushed at the door, the group points to the blue-haired boy startled by that sudden blinding light. The exam has started. As yellow lights flash, signaling the first trap, the system roars to hold onto your will. While Kim Yasak and the sacrificial sheep beside him look on in fear, a blonde entity appears with open arms as if saying, "Come to me." While bubbles fly, a crazed candidate snaps, shouts, "Enough!" and lunges at the entity, tearing it apart in one move. But victory is short-lived. As the child instantly turns into a pile of dust, massive bloody tentacles erupt from underground, turning the scene into a slaughterhouse. Some are shouting, "He's just an idiot!" Disgusted, he wonders how one could stay calm after seeing the gods' ugly faces if it's forbidden. As the system throws their failure in their faces with a cold voice, those who cannot be patient are doomed. Our guy is clenching his fist and fuming with rage. When you decide to ignore the rules, the Golem Guardian intervenes and roars that he will impose divine punishment. While the brats flee in fear, who gathers the forbidden magic and unleashes that savage red energy to create a bloody mess? With lightning flashing around, he rains bolts down on the giant guardian. The brown-haired boy is in shock. What was that? As the lightning pierces through the pile of stones, Yasak scowls again. Him again? While the guardian turns into a pile of rubble, our guy looks down on it, saying an 8th level creature is like a joke. He's sure this golem was built by the 14 demon generals who are his subordinates. Is the family ruling it, or are they here for him? As Isaac crawls away from the scene, he ignores the boy calling out to him. Eshu is amazed that his charms actually worked. Nigel, Sepet, and their sidekicks emerge from the bushes, grinning shamelessly, claiming the power of Eshu knew the way and boasting about taking care of the gatekeeper. While claiming the second room and kicking the others out, Isaac coolly observes how many surviving parasites remain. As the Eshu family's cowardice is mocked, the boy beside him stutters, but Nigel turns back to his group and continues his speech. The bully, thinking the boy escaped the traps because of the ring around his neck, assumes it's a key and snatches the necklace away. Unlike the fool who thinks he can bypass every trap with that toy, Isaac's sidekick senses the gravity of the situation and the storm beneath that calm. That kid won't let anyone steal from him. Thinking he no longer needs Ashua, Nigel orders him to step back, unaware his end is near. He put that famous, filthy smirk on his face. Declaring he'd seize the loot regardless of claims that the Skeleton King's corpse belonged to the Sephet family, he charged forward. One step later, mayhem erupted as a blinding light surged from the ground. As the vanguard suddenly began to sizzle in a sea of flames, the brown-haired boy froze amidst the screams. It was obvious how Isaac, that little devil, had fooled them all while smirking from the center of the fire. The flames died down, leaving behind only ash and smoke. He slung his comrade over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Stepping over the corpses, he burst into the second room. He glanced back at the barbecue party behind him. He thanked those innocent souls for their sacrifice and grew annoyed at his stubborn pursuers. Why wouldn't they just leave him alone? Some wide-eyed fool, staring in total awe, whispered that she surely possessed divine power and had come from the saint's house. Isaac grimaced. He didn't care about being worshipped. On his shoulder, Shuri Eshva was silently begging for the others to run. Though he thought the monster of Shuri Hill was worse than a demon, he tried to flatter him with the lie that he was the only saint there. Just then, a blond boy appeared. This sucker, expressing his joy at meeting the young Ashwa Lord, was Paris Julius, the second prince of the Julius kingdom. Isaac's eyes lit up with interest at the prospect of finding a useful prey. Shuri tried to ask something, but Isaac had already announced their arrival and dropped the subject. A massive door loomed before them. The sphere of light. He said the room was for contemplation and that they needed to show courage. The followers lamented their separation from Isaac. While Nigel claimed the body was theirs, the overseer explained the test was simple: defeat them and seize victory. Isaac narrowed his eyes, sized up the gatekeeper. He smelled a rat. With that smug, arrogant look of being right, "Hey!" Isaac yelled, making the others jump. Shuri froze, then realized the truth. Isaac is right. The gatekeepers are lying. The first room was the chamber of selection where Isaac charged ahead. The second was the chamber of silence where he showed no restraint. Now the chamber of contemplation? Isaac had deduced that the hint lay in the past. Shuri Ishva warned not to attack, but Kim Isaac pointed at the statues and ordered the advance. Shuri reassured himself that perhaps the same bloodline in Kim was awakening. Perhaps I misjudged him. Shuri missed the wicked smile and the energy orb in Kim's hand. Kim hurled the orb at the gatekeeper. Shuri froze. Enveloped in evil energy, the gatekeeper roared, "You have failed." It tightened its grip on its staff and unleashed a massive red slash. Screams rang out as the explosion caught several children. Kim sat calmly on another boy's back, ignoring police calls for help. The realization of Shuri's pallet hitting him. "Hey, you crazy bastard!" he yelled. Kim just smiled, closing his eyes. What a familiar sight. The gatekeepers revealed their true forms as demonic puppets and mocked the students. Teach these brats a lesson. Kim laughed maniacally while his human mount cursed in despair. An explosion engulfed the area in fire. 2 survivors searched frantically. Where are the SSS? Kim was gleefully perched on Shuri's head, both hidden by a 6th-level invisibility spell. Second Prince Perry Julius recognized them. Thanks for making me invisible too, Kim thought. He used the blessing at the right time but simply replied, whatever. Grateful, the prince offered a silver ring. Take this. Perry wondered, is it because I'm not used to fighting demons? Kim watched with calculating eyes, believing he received the holy artifact. Perry said thank you, I won't forget this. The ring glowed gold then brutally drained his divine power. Perry screamed in agony. Kim laughed, delighted to have found the best prey. His subordinate flattered him. Of course, master. Shuri looked up at the monster on his back in horror. Uncle, where did you find that? Elsewhere a candidate shouted. Who can use defensive holy magic? A young man stepped up, conjuring a light sphere. Get behind me. The supervisor, now a demon with a giant scythe, roared. Accept your punishment. Attack. Another order. The young man unleashed a stream of holy light. Take this. The attack was neutralized, throwing him back and shocking his team. As he lay motionless, his friend cried, Hey! Hey! What's going on? Above the ring floated with an eerie red glow. The supervisor sent a candidate flying. Suddenly the skeletal puppet paused, tilting its head. Where did all 3 kids go? The shadow subordinate reported. We've absorbed the holy power here. Moving to the other side. Kim watched the chaos. Don't feel bad, weaklings. That bell stops when you fall. Better I take the power than you hurt yourselves. Master, almost done. The shadow paused as a golden sphere materialized. What is that? A dazzling pillar of light erupted, blasting the shadow creatures away. Through the smoke a figure appeared. Found it, Kim whispered. A white-haired, golden-eyed boy breathing holy fire appeared. Isaac Eshva. Kinnabarrett stepped forward. I wondered where you went. Nigel Seifert started sweating. I knew he was a genius, but these giant wings of holy light unfurled from Isaac's back. To summon a holy spirit at this age. It's absurd. Nigel screamed. Kina Barrett faced Kim Isaac, who had returned to his original form. Surprising that someone could defeat a demon, Kina sneered. Or did you lure the children into a trap again? Just like the first room? Kim Isaac smiled cunningly. The children cried out. No, that baby did everything for us. While one candidate insists the brat is leading them, Kim Isaac wonders if these softies have Stockholm Syndrome. Kina, meanwhile, secretly scoffs at the idea of being rescued. When asked if they were ashamed to call themselves saints, a black-haired boy told them to their faces that the others were just hiding and Isaac deserved it more. As the group swarmed Isaac, the Shuria follower realized the truth and tried to stop everyone in despair, but no one listened. Despite warnings that this devilish boy was exploiting them, other survivors around whispered that without him, they'd already be pushing up daisies. Suddenly, they looked up in horror as a massive fireball descended, shaking the ground violently. As the survivors gathered before a massive door, a booming voice confirmed it was the entrance to the third room. The Treasure Vault's final guardian congratulated them for clearing the second room and offered a choice. Either take the treasure and get out of here, or finish the exam. A child was about to skip a word when the guard shoved it into his mouth and told them to think carefully about the answer to overcome the challenge of entering room 3 without even breaking the Kinnabar meat's coating. The guardian added that if they overcome this challenge, they'll be placed with the treasure of the third room, but if they fail, the outcome won't be pleasant at all. When the candidates froze in fear realizing failure meant death, Kim Isaac stayed calm because his shadow sensed the meaning in his voice. When the shadow spirit whispered that it was a dragon, Isaac made it clear he would still take action despite the reality of the threat. When one candidate shouted that grabbing the treasure could make them a saint, the others got hyped and trampled each other to reach the third room. Ordered to face the exam, an invisible force pushed them, and as a blinding light swallowed the group, the light faded. The guard pulled out a giant stone statue and ordered them to worship the Lord. Was it just another statue then? While one candidate whined about it being cardinal, the voice commanded that only those showing awe could enter, and the candidates began whispering. While most thought kneeling to pray was child's play, Kim Isaac grit his teeth, questioning the meaning of this charade. As memories of his archenemy flood his mind, Isaac refuses to kneel before that bastard, while another wimpy kid mumbles that it's just a prayer. When the child knelt and clasped his hands to start flattering his lord, he got a "well done" for memorizing his lesson. When the statue granted passage, the boy jumped with joy and spread hope to the others, but Isaac and Shuri froze in place. Sensing the icy killing intent radiating from the boy, Isaac landed a heavy kick to the stomach of Shuri, who was saying they should pray. As Shuri staggered, Isaac clung to his leg like a leech, stubbornly. Kina knelt, radiating holy lights and rewriting the book of worship as others tried to emulate her. While a child praised her with trembling hands, he was suddenly flattened against the ground by a pressure like an invisible press. While the others panicked, stomping in line and bowing submissively before the statue, the stone figure seemed to react. When someone challenged Isaac, asking why he wasn't kneeling, Isaac secretly mocked the sheer stupidity of the question. While rumors spread about Isaac, thinking only a sucker would kneel, his faith was questioned and Shuri's voice crackled in his mind. While Shuri ordered her not to disgrace the family, Kina Barrett plotted with a sly smirk, knowing it was all being recorded. While some thought even a talented person without faith would be eliminated, removing a rival, Isaac stared at the statue with hatred. To Isaac, who would rather rot and die than kneel before that bastard pile of stone, the statue remained silent. As a terrifying pressure filled the air, Isaac, trembling but refusing to back down, challenged me to kill him, and a dark energy erupted from the stone. As a roar echoed from the void-swallowing shadow that the disrespectful would lose their heads, Isaac cursed and yelled for them to give it their all. Screaming that he would shatter the foolish statue, Isaac crushed and destroyed his panicking shadow servant, who was warning of danger, in a fit of rage. As death cries rang out, a sharp voice echoed with absolute approval, alongside a bright light piercing the darkness. While Isaac stood there like an idiot staring at the charred remains, it was announced that the young candidate had passed. Kina Beret didn't know what to say, she was in shock. Told they had to show respect, Kina pointed an accusing finger at the boy, questioning how he could pass without praying. The statue replied to this nonsense, stating that kid was the only one showing true faith in God, while Isaac stood there speechless. The statue roasted them all, asking if they were kneeling before God or a piece of stone, and whether their faith commanded them to worship idols. As the frozen candidates realized they were bowing to an idol, they panicked in the face of this doctrinal trap. While the statue declared the boy stayed true to his faith even facing death, Isaac just mumbled the word faith. Then, as Isaac puffed out his chest and showed off, Kina gnashed her teeth, thinking this was unacceptable and that he was just a baby. While Kina argued that the rejection couldn't be proven to be faith-based, Isaac crossed his arms and smugly agreed with his accuser. Then Kina played her final card. Isaac, with all his faith, was shocked when asked where his holy mark was, and shaken by the scandal of a saint candidate appearing without one. While Isaac enjoyed the show with a shy smile, Kina pressured him to give in, insisting she had no flaws on her own. With its echoing voice, the statue made an excuse, saying that it was a child and a young child shouldn't have such a thing yet, which shocked everyone. While Isaac was stunned by this success, Kina shouted it was nonsense, and showed him she could move all along. The others were discussing what would happen if he leaked it. When the statue asked if they dared to enter the third room, a graveyard silence suddenly fell. When the stone heap gave approval, a festive mood swept the crowd, but Kina looked sour. He was suspicious it was so easy. The statue's mood shifted instantly, tensing the air by saying, "If you thirst for death like moths to a flame, come in." That foul wave of dark magic made everyone shiver. The massive door at the back creaked open, revealing a pitch-black abyss. As the candidates froze in fear, a heavy magical pressure settled on their lungs. The statue, practically ecstatic, screamed that this pressure choking Kina and the others was pure magic radiating from the Skeleton King's body. While the poor candidates were being crushed and flattened, unlike those crying out. "What kind of magic is this?" Kina grinned wickedly. Realized the king's body was lying there, in the flesh, excuse me, in the bone. He never expected to see it again. After he blew himself up in the divine realm, mana erupted, and panic swept across the boy's face. Then, a white-haired brat pointed his finger at Kim Yutsaka. While some admired the boy's faith and his so-called brave warrior face, Shuyuri was cursing him out in his head. While they wondered how courage could go mad, the bright fireball appearing above echoed that it wasn't too late to give up. When things get tense, a candidate who can't smile in the face of death must go. One candidate cried out, asking how they could ever overcome this crazy magical power. While two clumsy people tried to conquer their fears in return, the white-haired boy heroically stepped forward. He scattered the loot from the second room and handed it out to everyone. He was planning to drag him into the third room. He looked at that fireball and challenged it. Shuri was speechless when he asked that all traps inside be activated. The being created from fire laughed softly at this madness. Even that brat, who stared with a sly grin at the person asking if his wish was real, said that even Saint Melissa couldn't bring back that bag of bones. The boy, claiming As Eyes wouldn't leave the kids to die and that it was a security measure, stated he didn't want rumors spread that he took the easy way out. While he ordered them to fix the difficulty of the third island, another kid in the corner thought some boards were missing from this level. The gatekeeper gleefully accepted the request, using the excuse it would make finding the true saint easier. As the white-haired smart aleck wore a smug grin of victory, another candidate squealed, asking why he didn't just go alone instead of dragging everyone into this mess. The scene turned into a nightmare as a giant leg descended through the mist. That skeletal horror, standing over the record and radiating a black dream, crushed the poor candidates. Whisper looked at the skeleton with love, confirming it was the master's noble body, while Kim Yusak bragged about how handsome his own bones were. While Shuri tried to recall the words of her missing body, she also struggled to tell if what she saw was truly the Skeleton King's corpse. Those who laughed at the ones surprised by this energy from a single hand were laughing at the ignorant ones who didn't know it all came from just the thumb. While wondering if this was the original piece or if the others were copies, a terrifying wave from the skeleton destroyed everything. After this power leveled everyone, a giant demon in the guise of a tiger rose from the darkness, and the candidates didn't know what to do. You know, since there's a guard in the second room, those who ignore the ones crying can't understand why those whose high security measures were removed are whining now. As the guardian stomped to crush these insects targeting the demon king's body, Shuri screamed that it was all that white-haired brat's fault. The white-haired boy grabbed Shuri's hand, trying to restore trust with empty promises that everyone would leave with treasure. The grinning brat knew full well that his opponent was one of those 14 demon elites personally trained by the Skeleton King. Claiming to have prepared a special sacred art from the Papal Institute for this demon, he began his show. With eyes glowing with holy light, determined not to let anyone take the treasure, the giant demon doubled over under divine pressure. People went wild over the Pope's light. While Kim Yusak watched silently, the white-haired boy was thrilled as his plan worked perfectly. The only thing on that bright-eyed kid's mind was that bag of bones. But the demon, glaring at him with bloodshot eyes, managed to stand up with great effort. Unlike the demon questioning who eyed the king's body, the nobles outside and the blond man were biting their nails in curiosity. Panic set in as they heard nothing from inside, until a breathless messenger arrived with news that the demon in the third room had broken its chains. While Eshva and his friends stood frozen, one of his aides was terrified to learn that the demon was one of the famous elite. Breaking into a cold sweat, Relly realized everyone in the cellar was about to kick the bucket. A guard rushed from the observation room, reporting the elders had bypassed the traps and vanished, while the children were left sitting ducks. Screaming that they couldn't handle the demon elite and must stop the ritual to get them out, the guard ran for the door, only to be slammed against the wall by a sudden barrier. Relly was shocked when a dazzling light burst from the basement. Goldschwa watched the events from the sidelines with worried eyes. While they thought the door was opening from the cellar, the intense holy light surrounding the stone door was interrupted by an old man, silencing the knight who feared demonic energy might leak out. The old man, claiming he felt no demonic energy, turned to Cardinal Harry Barrett, mistakenly believing the elite were cleared and the victory belonged to Kina. As the guard panics, grabbing Relly by the collar and blaming one of the kids inside, the curious crowd immediately starts gossiping. While everyone blames that noble boy of Pope descent for the contract, a swarm of sycophants surrounds Harry Braz like flies. When our fake excellency is declared the favorite candidate, he accepts fake congratulations with that nauseating, artificial smile on his face. Harry's eyes gleam with malice, inwardly mocking those fools while hatching twisted plans to seize the skeleton king's body. While he dreams of tarnishing the country's honor and bringing it to its knees, the crowd outside shouts for joy, celebrating the children's return. While Harry has an unnecessary burst of confidence, Goyle turns pale with fear upon seeing familiar faces like Isaac and Shuri. Seeing the bruised and injured children streaming out of the dark doorway, the assistant is relieved, but the two survivors continue to whisper anxiously. As panic grows among those wondering what happened in the third room, Relly and Ishwa step forward with sour looks on their faces. In the final scene, as they emerge in a state of misery led by Amen and Shuri, applause breaks out again, and parents practically pounce on their trembling children. As the father and son share that dramatic reunion, Goyle and Hannah manage to push through the crowd in Ishwa and reach Shuri. Just as everyone is hugging and roaring like animals, Relly turns around in shock, wondering what's going on.